What is the dumbest thing you spent money on? Story 1, the lottery. My grandfather used to play, and he said if he ever won big, he'd take care of all of us financially. When he was dying, he asked that his numbers be continued and the family be cared for if it comes in big. So I continue it for him. Every time I lose, as is basically a statistical certainty, but I made a promise, so I will continue to waste that money in his memory. Granddad, if you've got Reddit where you are, let's win big, yeah? So I can stop. Story 2. Sneakers or any expensive clothes on a growing kid. They outgrow clothes so fast. Some of the clothes are barely ever worn before you're donating them. Especially sneakers. My boys would outgrow sneakers and cleats what felt like overnight. Story 3. One of my formative childhood memories was being duped by advertising for a robot dog, Turska or something. The TV adverts were like, "This is totally great. Just like a real dog." I'd always wanted a dog, but couldn't get one because my sibling was allergic, and my parents didn't want the responsibility of something new to look after. It was about 100 pounds or something. Crazy expensive. My family wasn't very wealthy at the time. I had it on my Christmas list. I remember my parents sitting down with me and saying, "This is really expensive. Are you sure you want it? It'll be your only present." Christmas Day, I unwrapped it, turned it on, it shuffled around a bit and fell over. The only thing it did was bark when you literally pressed a button on its nose. I'd literally made better walking robot mechanisms myself from K-Nex. Within 10 minutes, I'd shoved it in a drawer under my bed. For years, I'd randomly open that drawer and see that piece of crap and feel like shit. Honestly, I think it's given me a lifelong difficulty spending money. I do still think about it randomly and feel depressed. Story 4. Makeup. I have nothing against makeup. I actually aspire to be someone who is skilled at makeup, but TBH, I don't have the mental energy to learn how to do it. For years, I would buy so many pretty colors of eyeshadow, concealer, foundation, lipstick, all the things. Then they never were opened. I finally did a clean sweep and said, "This is not me. This is aspirational. I admire it, but it is not me." Story 5. Brand new, 2003, Hummer H2. It was a very good business write-off, but financially irresponsible at over $50,000 plus interest back then. Second would be the $30,000 it cost me for construction costs to renovate a retail space I leased in 2005. That did not include the additional costs of new carpet, furniture, fixtures, etc. You think, tax write-off, but it's not free money. Story 6. I bought these speakers that had a sticky pad which would allow them to stick to most surfaces. The idea is that it turns whatever they stick to into a speaker. I was shopping at a Kroger when I was about 16, and a guy peddling these things inside the store at a stand convinced me to spend about $60 buying a set of them. I had this really dumb daydream that I was going to give one to everyone in my family as a Christmas gift, and that they were going to love them. I brought them home and stowed them away until Christmas, except for the one I opened for myself. I used it only a couple of times and realized it was a piece of junk and wasn't worth using at all. I then realized I had a whole set of them in my closet and was too embarrassed to give that junk to my family, so I threw them all away. I didn't have a job at the time. My family was poor, and overall it was just an extremely stupid purchase. On the bright side, that experience where I wasted $60 has most likely prevented me from wasting even larger amounts of money down the road from learning a good lesson. Story 7. Bought a complete set of brake parts for my truck, put on the front set and had to go out of town before getting the rear ones installed. Got back and couldn't remember if I had ordered brake parts for the rear. Looked around and didn't see them, so I just figured I hadn't. Spent $200 on parts, got them in, went to put them in the shed, and there were the parts I had already ordered. Duh. Story 8, ITT Tech. I was given a $40K loan after 5 minutes of being in their office. No credit check, no income check, nothing. Here's $40K, it's due in 2 years. Congratulations. Never found a job that paid better than serving tables, so that $40K turned into $50K with all of the interest and deferment periods. I learned next to nothing from those moronic, horrible, money-grubbing professors. I had over a decade of stress on how this debt was going to affect me. Useless debt BTW. Thank God a few years ago ITT Tech went under and was sued by the entire educational world. My loans were discharged, and I got a small check for any payments I made. Don't go to a college where they will accept you in 5 minutes and give you a loan. If the test to get in could be completed by a toddler, find another school. Story 9. A guy came around my business selling spray cleaner, which I figured for some kind of scam. He demonstrated it, though, and it worked like nothing I've ever seen. Like, even would remove old Sharpie marker from a bare wood surface and years-old grime from an industrial oven. I think paid him around $200 for a gallon of concentrate, and it was crap. It didn't work any better than Windex or something. I get that I got ripped off when I knew better, but what I don't understand is what was in the bottle he was using. Why not just sell that instead and have happy customers? Story 10, a haircut. Mom did it for years as she was a barber in her younger years. As I got older, I started to get it cut professionally. I didn't take long before I realized, with the right equipment and a small amount of practice, I could just cut my own hair. Best skill I've ever put time into. So much time and money saved over the years, and I do a better job than any of my previous barbers could. Don't have to put up with the awkward small talk either. I'm now practicing cutting my wife's hair. That's a whole other pink tax I want rid of. No one should pay that kind of money to trim off a couple inches. Story 11. Fabric to reupholster 2 chairs. The store's upholstery person was doing that job as a side gig and decided it was too much apparently right around the time I bought the fabric. When I called, she yelled at me that she was too busy and hung up on me. Never found anyone else to do the work. Ended up replacing the chairs a couple of years later. $500 worth of fabric for nothing. We used it gradually over the years for small jobs, but I've always regretted buying it in the first place. Story 12. A barcode scanner. I don't even remember why the hell I bought it. I guess I thought it would be useful for a project I had in mind some time back. It scans a variety of barcodes, QR codes and whatnot pretty much instantly, but I spent money on it and can't bear to get rid of it, a forgotten solution looking for a problem just sitting unused in my closet. Story 13. I spend money on dumb things all the time. Sometimes cheap, sometimes not as cheap, but I tell myself that's what life is about. Sometimes the joy or small escape from a dumb $5 purchase, or the joy of finding a new product and spending and saving and getting what you want. That was a whole experience on itself. Otherwise, we are our own prisoners within our own lives. Story 14. Dumbest thing is person-to-person dependent. What someone else thinks is dumb may be my best investment. I'm a furry, I'm saving money for a fursuit. They cost thousands of dollars. People think this is dumb, but to me, it helps me escape my life. My life is currently filled with chronic pain, mental pain, and loneliness. To me, getting the fursuit eventually is one of my best investments into myself, my mental health, and my happiness. I know the furry community likes those with fursuits more than those without them, but that's not why I'm getting one. I have a disability, well actually 3, and I want to prove anyone can fursuit. It brightens people's day to see you. It makes you happy. And for the moment you're not you, you're your fursona, which can, but not always, be what you see as the ideal version of you. I want to be happy, not lonely, not in pain, etc. And when fursuiting by borrowing friends' suits, I don't feel the weight of my disabilities or mental health. I feel good about myself. Fursuits are mental medicine. Story 15 records. I got into vinyl as a hobby, and I can admit it's a massive waste of money. They cost so much, they're subjectively worse sounding than using my PC and lossless files, but God, I love it. I'll still buy more, and I'll still upgrade my system. It's so dumb, though. Story 16. I was in an airport lounge during the transit of a really long journey. I asked about the showers, and the receptionist said that it cost what sounded to me as $15. I figured that was reasonable and gave her my card. She swiped it and gave me a receipt when I realized that the cost was $50. Most expensive shower ever, and I felt like an idiot for doing it. Story 17. For me, it was buying a whole life insurance policy. I was in college and single without any type of assets or liabilities to take care of. The agent convinced me it was there to protect my future, and I bought in. I paid for it somewhere around 3 years before wising up and canceling the entire thing. I got back something like 10% of what I put in. Dumbest thing I ever did financially. Story 18, comic books. I know they're kind of a waste of money, but I love to collect the old Silver Age books from the early 60s. I don't read them or open them ever, just like to own them. The older and more rare, the better. Maybe one day I'll sell the lot and buy a Ferrari or something. Story 19, electric bike. Used one to get around Gatlinburg when I hiked the AT and thought, this is fabulous. Got home and had to have an e-bike. But not just any e-bike. The 200 lb fat tire trail-rated e-bike for like $2,200. I live in the city and haven't used it once. Truth is, I'm a bit scared of it. Story 20. Back in the early 2000s, Oprah had one of her favorites list. There was a tin of hot chocolate from a place in NYC, so I ordered it, but by the time I had to pay shipping, customs, and duty on it, and the conversion to Canadian dollars, it was $75 for this small tin. It sticks with me to this day. Story 21. A Rolex, I've had a few in the past, but sold them for various reasons. Recently bought another one, and honestly, I just feel guilty for having spent that much on a watch. It's nice, but it doesn't bring me any joy. And if anything, it's almost embarrassing to wear because it makes me feel like I'm trying to show off or impress someone, so I hardly wear it. I'm happy with my $1.80 Casio throwback. Story 22. I wanted to play BG3, so I bought BG3, €60. Then it turned out my graphics card wasn't good enough to play BG3. So I wanted to buy a new GC, but they were super expensive, but a friend of mine was selling his Steam Deck. So I bought his Steam Deck, Euro 300. Then my colleague found a relatively cheap GC that was good enough for BG3, so I bought that GC as well, Euro 290. So in total, I have spent Euro 650 just to play BG3. Story 23, a smart card for digital signatures. I wanted to be a good citizen and do my part to reduce paperwork and switch to digital civil and governmental services. I even own an approved and full certified USB card reader. Turns out the card won't work until activation, and activating requires a proprietary Windows app provided by the card vendor. I don't have a Windows computer. Now I'm stuck with a useless 200 EUR plastic card. Story 24. I got a $42,000 bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and computer forensics. Why was this a dumb thing to spend money on? Well, a couple reasons. The university I went to was basically a scam and didn't actually teach anything once students got into their degree program courses and were too financially invested to quit. Totally coincidentally, this university is being forced to close. Upon graduating and applying for IT jobs, I realized nobody gave a fuck about IT degrees. I was even outright told that IT degrees don't mean anything. What employers want to see are experience and certifications. I could have gotten the IT job I have now, and the all-important experience, without having spent around $42,000 on loans for a useless degree. I've spent about $23,000 so far paying off my loans, and still have to pay off the rest. I could have invested all of that money instead of wasting it paying for a fancy piece of paper from a university that's being forced to close. Story 25. When I was a kid, I loved playing GoldenEye on N64 with friends. Problem was, it was 4-player split screen, and it was easy to peek at the other screens and take advantage of knowing your opponent's position. I saw an ad for this device that you put up against your TV screen, and it was supposed to stop others from seeing your part of the screen. I think it was like $1.60, which was a lot for a kid back then, but I saved the money and bought it. Turns out it was just some cardboard pieces you put together and pushed against the screen. Each player had to put their face up against it, which was very uncomfortable. Still regret buying that. Story 26. Not counting random, impulsive luxury fashion items over the years, which truly are the dumbest thing to spend money on. Probably my whiskey collection, and in particular the bottles over $1,000 which I have no idea when I'll ever open and enjoy, as I believe I need to be in a certain position, standing, or have a special enough occasion to justify it. Emo. It's one thing to be able to afford to buy something and another to be able to afford to indulge in it. Same as buying some collectible sneakers and being afraid to wear them. I fully recognize the stupidity of this, but do it anyways. Story 27. I paid for a PDF to be filled out. I still had to print and send it. I renewed my passport recently, and there was a website that you paid for the form to be filled out. I thought it also sent in the form. I thought that was an upgrade since you used to have mail in a big packet. The government did not upgrade their method of receiving information, LOL. I was pissed and called to get a refund. And they are a legit federal contractor. All they do is fill out a free PDF for you and charge you like $40.